Hello, everyone. We will wait just one moment to allow everybody to join the event, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So just wait with us for one moment. Wonderful. For those who are just now joining, we're waiting for the rest of our attendees to join, and we'll get started in just 1 minute. Alrighty, I'm going to go ahead and get started by introducing myself. My name is Natalie Rudd. I'm the programs manager here at the National Women's Hall of Fame, and I'm going to be your moderator this evening for the event, An Evening with Ruth J. Colvin, our star for the evening. Tonight's event is going to spotlight the 1993 National Women's Hall of Fame inductee, Ruth Colvin. At 104 years young, Mrs. Colvin is our National Women's Hall of Fame oldest living inductee. So she'll be telling you more about her life this evening. Ruth Colvin, a bit about Ruth. She saw the extent of the problem of pervasive adult literacy in 1961 when she read the 1960 US Census report, which stated that more than 11,000 people where she lived in Syracuse, New York, could not read. Her life was transformed when she undertook the necessary training to help correct the situation, and she founded the Literacy Volunteers of America, now Pro-Literacy. The organization developed tutor training programs, special materials, community support components, and a model that involved people from all walks of life in this one community. During her more than over 4 decades of literacy work, Ruth has published 9 books and visited or worked in more than 60 countries. She's been awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the Presidential Medal of Volunteer Action, and 9 honorary doctorate degrees. But before we begin, I have a few housekeeping details. Following Mrs. Colvin's talk, we will host a live question and answer session. You can submit your questions using the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen at any time during the event. If you experience any technical issues during the webinar, we recommend leaving the webinar and then rejoining the lecture completely. That being said, tonight's event is being recorded, and all registrants of the event will receive an email tomorrow morning with a link to the recording where you can watch or rewatch the event at any time. You have the power to change the size of the closed captions, which we are equipped with tonight. We do have closed captioning. You can turn them on or off using the closed caption button in the Zoom toolbar. In the event's follow-up email, you will also be asked to fill out a brief survey, and we ask that you please take a few minutes to fill it out. Your feedback is immensely helpful as we continue to grow and improve the National Women's Hall of Fame virtual forum. And as you know, today's event is free, and these virtual forums are critical to continuing our institution's nonprofit mission of showcasing great women and inspiring all. And this includes making hall events accessible for learners, all learners. And that includes those with limited physical abilities or a lack of financial means. So please consider making a donation to the National Women's Hall of Fame as a non-for-profit. Every dollar helps. And finally, if you enjoyed tonight's event and want to learn more about the Hall, consider signing up for the National Women's Hall of Fame e-newsletter, where you'll be the first to know about upcoming events such as these and opportunities to get involved. The link to donate and sign up for the newsletter will be included in the follow-up email that you will get tomorrow. But without further ado, please give a warm virtual welcome to our 1993 inductee, Ruth Colvin. Ruth, are you ready to go ahead and begin your talk?
I am ready. Can you take this webinar is recorded is across my page. Can you take that off?
Oh, if you hit OK, it'll go away. We can't take it off, but you can, Ruth. If you hit OK, this webinar is being recorded will go away.
What'll I do?
It should say this event is being recorded. You should have one that will say leave the webinar, or it'll say OK.
No,
Continue. Does it say
no,
continue?
It says leaving meeting or continue is all it says.
Continue. Hit continue.
Hit continue. Ah, I'm there.
Thank you, folks. As you know, we always are all learning more about Zoom every single day.
Ah, right. It's lifelong learning.
Yes, it is. It's all about lifelong learning. Well, now without further ado, Ruth, take it away. I'm going to turn my camera off so we can all look at you.
I was honored to be inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame in 1993, and I was pleased when later I visited there. Quite an honor to be wearing this Medal of Honor, even now. Congratulations to the new inductees into the National Women's Hall of Fame. But what a surprise to me that I'm the oldest living inductee. Yes, I'm 104, but age is just a number. What's important is what you do with your number. What have I been doing with my big number? Well, over the last 3 years, I've been writing my memoir. My memoir is my travels through life, love, and literacy, a journey taking over 100 years in the making. Why write this book? Well, people keep asking me the secret to my longevity. And how could I start a national literacy organization when I wasn't even a teacher? Visiting 62 countries, giving literacy training in 26 developing countries. What effect did that have on me? And finally, how can I live a positive life, having lost the love of my life after 73 years together? Looking back over my 100+ years, I learned that early life experiences helped make me the person I am. And I've shared my lifelong experiences. I learned from my mistakes as well as from my successes. How started by my literacy program 60 years ago, I thought you might want to know how I started it. Can you read this? Frustrating, isn't it? You don't know if I'm inviting you to news or a warning of danger. Yes, I'm putting you, a reader, in the shoes of a non-reader. But there's a joy in reading something you couldn't read before. I'll give you that joy, but you must know the special code. And this is the code. Think of the letter, following the letter in the alphabet in the unknown word. What follows a V? W. A D? E. What follows a K? L. A B. What follows C? What follows a B is a C. What follows an N, O, an L, M, and what follows a D, E. Read WELCOME. Welcome to the world of reading. There's a whole chapter on how I started Literacy Volunteers of America. Now here's a shorter version. I was in my 40s when the 1960 US Census came out saying there were 11,055 functional illiterates in my city of Syracuse, New York. We take it for granted that everyone can read, for we have required schooling. But I was shocked. Who were they? Why couldn't they read? What was being done about that to help them? Nothing. Well, I can't believe a life without reading. So I had a coffee at my house, inviting all on the Board of Education and presidents of nonprofits. That took a lot of courage on my part, but they came and all were shocked as I was. But only one woman from Church Women United invited me to speak to her group, representing the women of 80 churches. They voted to sponsor a literacy project, but only if I would take charge. That was the beginning of Literacy Volunteers of America. But I wasn't a teacher, and I had no training in basic literacy. I took training in pure phonics, thinking that was the way. But within that first year, I found both volunteer tutors and students were dropping out. So I interviewed them. I found the tutors saying they obviously weren't good teachers, but it wasn't working. And the students said they probably were dumb, as we've been told before, for it wasn't working for them either. Then I did what I should have done earlier. I called Syracuse University, Dr. Frank Green, head of the reading clinic, telling him my problem. He said he knew why, for my pure phonics method was 30 years behind the times. I was shocked. He offered to help me, invited me to work with a dozen PhD reading specialists at Syracuse University. I was amazed. It was like the sky opening up. First, I learned it must be learner-centered, finding what each student wanted to learn. And while phonics is important in English, it is not totally phonetic, but it is a pattern language with many sight words, and how important comprehension is. Working with Syracuse University, top professional reading PhD experts gave me what I needed. My job was to put it into a simple training, which I did in the book Tutor, which is now available in its 8th edition. As we accepted migrants who needed English second language, I took more training and I wrote the book I Speak English, which is now available in its 5th edition. But a most important and most helpful book is Reading Evaluation, which helps tutors and teachers find which students can't read at all and others who are at a low level, learning where to focus teaching and plan lessons. And then A Way with Words, which tells the story of the great growth of Literacy Volunteers of America, now pro-literacy, across the country, filling an unmet need. And Off the Beaten Path, which tells of my international experiences. One never knows how teaching one person to read changes their lives. Let me tell you of my former students. At a party, I met the CEO of a large industrial plant in Syracuse. He congratulated me on my work, but said that as all his employees could read and write. What a shock to me, for I was teaching Martin, a maintenance man in his plant. I asked if he knew Martin, one of his maintenance men. Oh yes, one of our very best. I explained that I was teaching Martin that he could not read at all, that he signed his name with an X. The CEO insisted that maintenance men didn't need to be able to read. Well, that's when I told the story of Martin. I asked him what he wanted to learn to read at first. He said, I want to read the men's and women's room. So I taught him those words, first the sound of M, E, N, and he read men, then women, and he went on to pattern words, teaching the sound of P and T, asking to read not only M-E-N, men, but P-E-N and T-E-N, which he did with great delight. And I asked how he knew which door to go in. Easy, just watch to see who comes out. Another woman couldn't read men and women, but she said she knew which door not to go in because she knew the sound of M for men. People who can't read are often very smart, learning to cope with a non-reading life. I then taught the sound of A, using the same M and N and the word M-A-N, and he read it. And then I went on to pattern words again, asking to read P-A-N, pan, T-A-N, and a new letter C-A-N, so he could read can. He was so excited. But then he brought in copies of the word dangerous explosives, which I taught him to read. But he was shocked. He said those words were on a huge sign over a big machine, and he went behind that machine to smoke his cigarette. That shocked the CEO, and he agreed everyone, even his maintenance men, needed to learn to read. I am grateful for my strong Swedish women's heritage. My grandmother, at 13 years of age in the 1870s, was sent alone from Sweden to New York City to be a nanny to a Swedish couple expecting a baby. She had had limited education, no English, probably went across the country by steerage, and was frightened. But she made it, only to find when she got there that the mother and baby had died. The man had no need for her and sent her to Chicago to work with other Swedes. She survived, but someone must have taught her English, making me always anxious to teach other immigrants English. What about my own early life? Well, I'm from Chicago and the oldest of 5 children. In 1929, the year of the Great Depression, my father, at age 38, died suddenly, leaving my mother with 5 children. I was the eldest, 12 years old. But my parents had saved for me to go to the University of Illinois. So when I was 17, graduated from high school, we went to my uncle, who is executor of my father's estate, asking for the money for me to go to the University of Illinois. My uncle listened, but shook his head. No, we're saving for the boys, my younger brothers. That was my first inkling that I was living in a man's world. So I had no choice. I went to a nearby junior college, which is the grandfather of community college. It was a blessing in disguise, but that's where I met the love of my life, my Bob, making a tremendous difference in the life I would live. It was years later, 2006, that I realized it still was a man's world. For 10 were honored with the Presidential Medal of Freedom. 9 men and 1 woman. I was that woman. There's a whole chapter in the book titled Traveling to Teach, Empowering Women Around the World. I learned that single mothers worldwide have learned to survive and grow. They have to work in the fields, sell produce at the markets, as well as to feed and support the family. To survive in tough times, even the children, especially young girls, are taken out of school to work in the fields. They were considered second-class citizens and were given little, if any, education. Bob and I were invited also to Guatemala in 2004, where Potter's House, nearby the huge trash dump, wanted help to teach basic Spanish literacy to the completely uneducated parents, who with the children were scavengers in the dumps. I assumed those we were to train had at least a ninth grade education, but I was wrong. Let me tell you of Leona, a widow, a scavenger with 5 children. She had gone only to 6th grade and wicked out to be a trainee, couldn't believe that her dream to be a real teacher just might come true. With little self-confidence and such limited education, it did take her longer to understand and demonstrate the required philosophy and techniques. But she did it. And she started teaching one person, hoping not only to teach that person to read and write in Spanish, but also to help her own children with their education. I'm always looking for a demonstration student to show the trainees how the teaching techniques work in real life situations. Maria had never been to school in her life. She was a scavenger and worked in the kitchen of Potter's house. She had said she wanted to learn to read, so I asked if she would be our demonstration student in the class. Maria was scared. She was ashamed. She had the lowest of self-esteem, but she agreed. As I gently guided her through the various techniques, she relaxed. As she showed little successes occasionally, the trainees clapped. They were getting the joy of her learning, and Maria was gaining the self-confidence she needed. In 1988, we were invited to Zimbabwe to work with the YWCA, who wanted help in working with the rural women, farm women, and women in the mine areas who had been deprived for so many years. 36 women speaking Shona came directly from the fields for the training. Their only 1.5 hour break from the work. Some with tiny children or babies on their backs, silent, tired, curious. While I worked through an interpreter, I greeted them with the typical Shona greeting, Masikati. They shyly smiled and greeted me in return. I wrote the greeting on the board they had for me, divided it into syllables, Ma-si-ka-ti, then teaching them the sounds of the vowels, a, e, I, o, u. And as they moved easily to ma-si-ka-ti, with ma, me, mi, mo, mu, continuing to sa, se, si, so, su, continuing to the other consonants. They had learned 20 syllables, and I mixed them up, having them read new words. The silent, tired women that I first met became the laughing, talking, excited women after the second lesson, clapping as they went back to their field to work. I learned from each teaching experience too. I was invited to South Africa to live literacy training during apartheid times, but we did not know that it was illegal for whites, blacks, and coloreds to meet. So we decided to quietly meet in a small rural church. The apartheid government learned that I was there, called me, asking if their Commandant Pogetier, head of teaching Black Army uneducated men, if he could join us, for he had no training. I was amazed and I didn't know what to do. So I went to Bishop Tutu, who was head of the United Church, asking what to do. He was shocked, for they had raided his building and treated them badly. He thought, prayed silently, and finally said, let him in. So I did. Commandant Pogetier didn't come in uniform, but the people knew who he was. I explained we had no choice, and we accepted him. Well, at the end of training, because I'd be leaving, I wanted to be sure they understood all the methods. To demonstrate, I asked Gugu, a young Black rebel, to be the tutor, and Commandant Pogetier, the White Army leader, to be the student. They did well. Everyone clapped. It's true, when working together on the same goal, not only are color and religion ignored, but the background of each person. A first step to unity of peace. Racism is our big problem. Because I'm a white person, gave training in so many Black African countries, I know the feeling of minorities. But what has racism to do with our literacy program? Well, we have white tutors teaching students of color, and students of color teaching white students, one-on-one across the country. Tutors and learners forget race, background, gender, and age differences as they work together on the same goal and soon become friends. I'm asked, how does our organization help with the COVID-19? Well, as you know, many of our immigrant students have very limited speaking and understanding English. So they don't always understand what we are trying to do with this COVID, but they do trust their tutors. Our tutors who have immigrant students are not only able to teach virtually, but they are usually the only ones who can help the immigrants understand why masks, why sanitation, why social distancing. It truly is lifelong learning indeed. In the latter part of my book, I share with you how important a balanced life is. Physical, exercise daily, walking, gardening, cleaning, whatever physical work you do, or bicycling, skiing, swimming, tennis, and for me, golf. My research showed me that early exercise brought oxygen and blood to your brain. Never stop moving. Mental, reading, research, discussions, asking questions, and always listening. An open mind. Emotional, trust, forgiveness, planning ahead, a positive attitude. And spiritual. You have no control over how you were brought up. So I suggest you look for the similarities in all religions, in all spiritual thoughts, and help one another. A favorite song years ago when I was dating Bob was 3 little words, and they were, I love you. But I found there are so many 3 little words that inspire me. Did you notice I use 3 little words for each of the balanced life? Never stop moving, an open mind, a positive attitude, and help one another. Here's some more that keep me going. Smile, be happy. Changes are forgiver. I love learning. God is love. And you'll want to add your own 3 little words that keep you going, such as reading is important. Never stop learning. Education continues lifelong. Do your best. Count your blessings. 2 literacy projects in California use my 3 little words for a teaching book, Live Life Fully. They found it successful as the students to pick their own 3 little words that would help them in life. I hope my book encourages you to look back at your own early lives, for you'll learn more about yourselves, seeing that seeds were planted to make you the person you are. You have no control over where or to whom you were born or how you were raised, but you do have more control over your future. And looking back helps you choose your own plans for your future life. I wish you all well. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ruth. That was beautiful. We're going to go ahead and transition now into our question and answer section. So if you have a question for Ruth and haven't already put it in the question box, you can go ahead and do that now. We already have a few, and I've already gotten a few ahead of time via email. So Ruth, we're going to go ahead and get started. One of our first questions is, somebody says that they would love to hear Mrs. Colvin talk about how she feels and what she thinks about when she is working with non-reading adults. And that's from Kathy 8 from Syracuse.
Okay, I believe we each have a special gift. The problem is to find your gift. It took me years to find my gift of literacy because you know I did it until I was 40. I believe that I'm better than everyone else, often in a very small way. But I believe that everyone else is better than I am in some way too. Mm-hmm. My goal is to find where others are better, my students especially. One of my early literacy students was a man who signed his name with an X. He couldn't read one word, had no education at all. I looked at him. I was better dressed. I budgeted and saved, and he knew no math, nothing about budgeting. But one day he brought a small homemade sweet potato pie. It was delicious. Now, I'm not a good cook, and he was an outstanding cook. So I found his gift. So I asked for the recipe. He dictated it, and I taught him to read his words and his recipe.
Wow.
We each had a great respect for each other.
Wow, I love that story. That's amazing, Ruth. Thank you. We have another question. What female historical figure would you choose to honor this month as it is National Women's History Month?
The most important person in my whole organization are the students. They are the reason we're in business. So they are the ones I would honor most. Who is the second most important? That's the tutors, who are actually doing the problem of teaching, and that's it. Supported by the staff of each group. Remember, we're in 1,000 organizations around the country, supported by the staff, by their board, and also by their donors. So this is where everybody is important in it, unless we can work together, and that's what we do.
I think that's wonderful. We have Pam Highland from Girl Scouts who says that she is your friend. She said, can you speak to how Girl Scouting impacted your life? You were such a role model for girls and women, and she thanks you.
Yes, Girl Scouts. When I was a little girl, as you told you, my father had died, and my mother couldn't drive a car, so we had no car. Well, when I was about 14 or 15, I heard them talking about Girl Scouts at school, and I wanted to know where it was. Well, I find that they met at night, quite a ways down from where I was. But I talked to my mother about it, and she let me take a streetcar all the way down there at night to become a Girl Scout. Well, this was a new area for me. I knew nothing about it, but I was thrilled. I heard about the camp. So I said to Mother, can I go to camp for 2 weeks? And so she said, yes. I went to camp. I was the one that knew least at the camp, but it was an amazing experience for me to do that. So after I was married, I had my son, then I had my daughter. When she got to be a little bit older, I wanted to give her Girl Scouts. So I didn't know what to do because I had no training in that at all. So I found I could take training to be a Girl Scout leader, and I took the training, and I got about 15 girls, all of her friends, and it was going well. But even at that time, I finally said to the girls, now, what is it you want to, we got them going, the first badges and so forth. Then I said, now, what do you want to do really? You know what they voted on? We want to go camping. Well, I know nothing about camping. I mean, what was I going to do? So I thought, no, I guess that's where I learned my learner-centered. So I went to Camp Edith Macy, which is the camp where you learn everything. I was the lowest one there because most of the leaders were there to learn much more. It's lifelong learning, and I learned. And that's where I had my Girl Scout troops. And if you look at my book, I've got pictures of them. I even had a Chinese Girl Scout camp when I was in Seattle, Washington.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you. We have a question from Mackenzie Tilton says, do you have any advice for students today that are learning through the pandemic?
Yes, it's not easy, but who said life was easy? But what you can do is virtual learning is something good. We can use a telephone. If you can use Zoom, you can use anything else. But even sending messages back and forth, even by mail, and then talking to them over the phone, you can still be learning. It depends on the student and the tutor. If they're determined that their goal is to get the learning and to be friends, You'd be surprised how quickly you can learn. So don't give up. My 3 little word, don't give up.
Don't give up. I love that. And speaking of, that actually brings it to a great next question, which is from Marcella Stoller. How do you keep from getting discouraged when a learner is making really slow progress? Also, how do you continue to encourage a learner like this?
You don't know what the background of your student is. If I learned, I had never been with people who had never been able to read. And then when I'm with them, I try to put myself in their place. If you've never been able to read, your parents hadn't read to you, you were going to be a slow learner. But that didn't make any difference. The most important thing is that you got the chance to do it. So don't give up, no matter how slow. There's no record how long you have to take. But if you have it learner-centered, that is the important thing. Find out what this learner wants to learn. And if you can get that, that's the first step to long life learning.
That's wonderful. And we have a question here from Monica. She says that she's been thinking about starting an organization to address a specific need in her community. What would you suggest for someone looking to start a new journey like this? And she is in Calgary and Banff, Canada.
And she's in Canada?
Yeah, she said you came to speak to her at a conference in 2009, and she's joining us today.
Oh, yes. Well, let me tell you, there is one literacy organization in Canada who is doing outstanding work. First of all you have to do is contact Pro Literacy, and they will give you whatever you need to get started. You learn from others, and I made many mistakes you'll see in the books, but I learned from them. And we learned the same thing from how to start new organizations. So Pro Literacy, if you write to them, they will tell you how to start and what to do, and you'll be on your way. The one good thing I think is once you've taught one person to read, whether it's it might be your children that you'll be teaching to read, or a one person, you will be so proud of it that you can't wait to get another student. Some of them will go fast, some of them will go slow, but it's up to you to find their gift and then go at their pace, and it'll probably be faster than they would have gone with anybody else.
That's wonderful. And this is actually very similar. Elizabeth Mackin from San Francisco says, how did you find the courage to pursue your passion when there appeared to be no obvious path for you to follow? How do you pave a way that hasn't been paved yet?
When I started it, how did I get the courage to start it? When I had the coffee at my house, I did not expect that I would be doing it. See, I thought the Board of Education and all the head of Rotary and all these different groups, they would be the ones that would do it. I'm just telling you, here's a problem that needs to be solved. Well, when nobody offered, except as you heard, the Church Women United said they'd only do it if I would take charge. I had no idea that I would be doing this. But I can't believe a life without reading. And I thought, if we can help 1 or 2 people in Syracuse, I was just hoping for a small group in Syracuse to start it. That would be what I was trying to do. So what you do is find out how to start it. And I hate to tell you, but the chances are you will be the one that's pushing it right along. Mm-hmm. And see, there again, how do you do funding? Funding, you ask, do people want, there's nobody that doesn't want somebody else to teach reading and writing. So they're very anxious to help you. So the problem of funding comes easier than you think.
Okay, thank you. And we have a message from Mary. She says, I'm currently teaching in the Adult Education Department of South Suburban College, which is formerly known as Thornton Community College. We think of you often and celebrate your success. Do you remember us and think of us?
I certainly do. I certainly do, because that's outside of Chicago, right?
I don't know. We'll see. Mary, is this outside of Chicago? Can you respond in the chat?
Yes, it is.
Well, yes, it is.
South of Chicago, Thornton Junior College.
Yep.
Yep, that's where I went. That's where
Wonderful.
That's where I went. And
well, Mary teaches at the Adult Education Department there.
Well, I hope she will get my tutor book and my I Speak English book and my read book, because that will help her right along and do it, because she's probably doing most of that already. But I'm always available too. If any of you have any questions that I can answer, I can't answer them all. When I've been doing it this many years, I've made a lot of mistakes and I've learned a lot. I will share it with you, but I've shared everything that I could in my books that I've written, the tutor and the I Speak English and the read.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ruth. It's amazing. Your reach just goes so far. And in fact, actually, we got a question via email. You and your husband traveled well into your 80s. Do you have any recommendations or advice for someone who hopes to continue traveling well past retirement age?
Ha, ha, ha. Age is just a number. Remember that. After we were 80, we traveled in one of the countries. I think it was Swaziland. We had signed up to go, and Bob was 80 and I was 79. And no, I was 80, he was 81. And they accepted us. And then they called me after we'd already accepted and said, "You both are 80. We said, "Yes, we are." And they said, "Well, we don't ever have volunteers come when they're 80. And I said, "Well, we'd be glad to." And they said, "Well, we've already signed up and we want you both to come." So we assumed that would be the last one for us. After we were 80, we were invited to 6 independent small countries all around the world.
Wow.
Including Swaziland, including Papua New Guinea, Cambodia, many countries I had never even heard of before.
Wow.
So no. After you're 80, the last one I did, I was 94, and that was when Haiti invited me to come there and give training. And I went. Wow. I gave training. You'll never know. If you're invited and you want to go, don't give up. Keep on traveling. My 3 little words.
3 little words I think that we are all going to remember. Let's see here. June, she asked, she just finished your new book, My Travels Through Life, Love and Literacy, a memoir. What are you reading these days?
I've been reading a lot about racism and about the COVID. And that's why I wanted to see what we were doing. That's why I mentioned it in the book, because the more you read about what is going on, the more you'll learn. I also like to know about history, because our history has made America what we are. Mm-hmm. So I keep learning. That's why I say I can't believe a life without reading. Can you? Especially now with the COVID, where we have a little time for reading. Mm-hmm. If you can help one other person, just think what a change it's made in their lives.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then we have a message from Valerie. She says, thank you, Ruth, for your inspiration and methods. I met you last January in Syracuse, which was a highlight of my life. I now have copies of every one of your books, and I'm applying them to the new field of data literacy that I am pioneering now with companies and governments across the world. Your impact lives on in new areas of literacy, data literacy. She asks, do you have any advice for applying your lessons to other types of literacy?
Yes, you will be finding all along the different types. I was thinking only adults that hadn't any education.
Mhm.
But I found one of the things where if parents can't read and write, their children are not read to. So they start out school without any stories, background, or anything else, and they probably will never have a good education.
Mhm.
So the problem is keep on going, no matter where you are. I just say you learn by doing, and you learn by, and you'll make some mistakes. In
Mhm.
my books, I tried to off the beaten path is one that is the one about only international. It's nine developing countries, 93 stories of experiences I had and stories of what have happened. And if you're interested in international travel, read that. That's Syracuse University Press put that one out. Uh, that was so popular when I first wrote it that I thought there was only 9 countries. I've been 26 developing countries. So I wrote another book about it and gave it to them, but I got a letter back. They had a new director, and the new director said, we're no longer printing your kind of books. So I thought, well, put away with it. That's why in my latest memoir, those of you that read it know there are stories. I think there are about 50 stories of
Mhm.
international experiences that I've had. And you'll learn from reading my book. But see, if you couldn't read, what could you do? This is why I think it's so important.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, we are running out of time. We're actually over time right now. And I have one last question that I want to ask, and this is from Tara Baker. Tara says, thank you for all you've done and all you continue to do. She says, my 6th grade students find you fascinating. What message would you like to share with them? And I want to end with this question because here at the Hall of Fame, we are all about inspiring the next generation by telling the stories of incredible women. So what message would you give to the future generation, Ruth?
For the 6th graders, there again, they can read. Bring some of the stories to them and let them get the thrill of seeing how fortunate they are to have gone to 6th grade and have a teacher who is interested in them. And then you can go to the library and you get more books. As I say, because you're a 6th grade teacher, which is a very important part of life, know that you're changing their lives. And the way you can do it is to ask them what they're interested in, what they want. Some of them already know what they'd like to do in the future. I didn't know anything of that, but I would have thought of different things. I would have thought, my book fell down. So ask them what they are interested in doing. Are they interested in sports? Are they interested in swimming? Are they interested in travel? Whatever it is. And then help them find books in that area, learner-centered. And no matter where you are, I did play tennis some, but I wasn't interested in tennis. So don't give me a book on tennis. I happen to play golf. So golf is one of the things that give me books on. In fact, all right, there again, Tuesday, it was 65 degrees here, bright sunshine. So what did I do? I got in the car. Yes, I do drive a car. I don't drive at night. I don't drive in distances, but I still drive. I went to our country club, and there again, you keep on doing what you're going to do. I decided, am I going to play golf this year? I don't know. So I went to the range And they had in my cart there for me, my clubs and all. And I hit 5 balls with every club for my driver, my 3-wood, my 5-wood, my 4-iron, all the way down. A shorter ball, I'll have a higher handicap, but it was straight all the way. I only missed 2 shots, so it gave me the courage to go on. But find the interest of your student, and that's what's important.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Ruth. We really appreciate you spending our time with us this evening. And I thank all of you for coming today. If you want to learn more about Ruth or the National Women's Hall of Fame, you can go onto our website. We will be emailing all of you with more information about Ruth after this. And in fact, I think we'll put some links to your books on there. If you want to read more about Ruth, you can buy her book, her memoir, on our website, the National Women's Hall of Fame website, and they are actually signed. So if you want a signed copy of Ruth's memoir, you can buy them on our website. And once again, Ruth, thank you so much. We are so lucky to have you as an inductee here at the Hall. And we're so glad that you continue to inspire us all and work with us. So thank you to Ruth, and thank you to everybody who participated today. If you have any more questions, please feel free to email us at forum@womenofthehall.org. Thank you, and have a good night.
And thank you all for coming.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Night.